What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot to get to in the world of volleyball. And when I mean the world of volleyball, I mean the Olympics. Because it is Olympic time, baby. Indoor, beach, you name it. I've got it all covered for you, especially on the U.S. side. The men's team had an impressive win over Argentina. Can they follow suit against Germany? And the U.S. indoor women's team had a very tough loss against China. What do you think could have gone better for the U.S.? And what just went wrong? And the beach teams have been having success. Karen Close and Kristen Nuss, they're both 2-0. Sarah Hughes and Kelly Chang, they're 1-0. Chase Buninger and Miles Evans, 1-0. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for Miles Partain and Andy Bennett, who unfortunately dropped a tough one against Cuba. But hey, plenty of volleyball to go. And we've got an ABC tournament this week. Where are we heading to on the beach? Find out in a little bit. Hand me a volleyball. After that, something about the Serbia volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on OATIIZ Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday morning, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made your way into episode 256 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without OATIIZ Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on StreamYard. Please do follow OATIIZ Sports Radio on several different social media platforms such as X, Instagram, Facebook, especially Facebook. Please do follow us on Facebook and on TikTok. And we are also available on several different podcast platforms such as Apple Podcast, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Amazon Music /Audible, Castbox, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, GeoSavin. The list goes on and on. And we also have a website, oatiizsportsradio.com, for all of your latest sports news, our blog, our pages dedicated to each podcast, such as Set Point, and our merchandise shop, where you can cop all of your OATIIZ Sports Radio swag, whether it's like tank tops, t-shirts, hoodies for the winter, some stickers. The list goes on and on. For the last 10 years, OATIIZ Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making OATIIZ Sports Radio your direct feed for all of that sports. The way you can follow Set Point on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, at set_point.ie, on Instagram, at set_point.iesr, and Set Point's also available on Facebook, Set Point. And you can follow me personally on X, formerly known as Twitter, where I'm mainly active at Teran Rodriguez 1. And we also can't get into the volleyball action without making note of our sponsors: Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. And without any further delay, let's get on in to what they're all about.
OATIIZ Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, OATIIZ Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out Seal the Deal Wax Seals and Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. We appreciate them for being the official sponsors of OATIIZ Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and we appreciate them for helping us pay the bills. All right, without any further delay, let's get on into that volleyball action as the Olympics are here. The Paris Olympics are here. Break out the escargot, pass the baguettes. It's Olympic time, baby. So let's talk some Olympic volleyball. So everything started on Saturday, and I also have to honor the chat room. I have to give a shout to the chat room. Drewski was checking in, as well as Ralph Calise and Bishop, and Adam Karnick said, oh, and I can't forget my buddy Adam Karnick. He said, "How go Team USA?" And he asked how the beach team's doing. Well, I was actually going to go into that a little bit later, as if we're going in chronological order, technically the men's did start, but I was going to save the entire beach roundup for after the men's side of things. So in terms of men's volleyball, the U.S. got everything started on Saturday when they took on Argentina. And I will just say, I like the broadcast crew. I like Paul Sunderland and Salima Rockwell, the Notre Dame women's volleyball coach. As I forget the last name of Kevin. I think it's like Kevin Prate. Regardless, the entire broadcast crew is great, but there's one thing I don't like about it. They're not at the Olympics. They're remote. I don't understand. Get them to the Olympics. The funny thing is that for beach volleyball, the broadcast crew is live and direct from Paris, but unfortunately, in terms of like indoor volleyball, it's not there. There's no broadcast crew live, so everyone is remote, which I kind of find annoying, but it is what it is. I still like the broadcast crew. Unfortunately, there was kind of a little bit of a funny moment in the men's match, but for the U.S. men's side of things, they looked really good against Argentina. So if you remember from the Tokyo Olympics, the U.S. actually got eliminated from top 8 contention as Argentina swept them. But this time around, the shoe was on the other foot. This was I wouldn't say this was a revenge game because that's in the past. However, the U.S. really took this match against Argentina very seriously as they wound up sweeping Argentina 25-20, 25-19, and 25-16. This one ended fairly quick. This was an hour and 10 minutes. If you're a volleyball fan or volleyball guru like myself, okay, not guru's a little bit of a stretch for me, but if you're a volleyball aficionado such as myself, most volleyball matches last like 90 minutes. They don't really last an hour and 10. And shout out to Davidson Crooks. He says, you got to do what this man says. Hit the like button, boost the algorithm, share it with your volleyball friends and whatnot. Thank you, Davidson, for popping in and tuning in. But for the men's team, it just looked so spry, so on it today. I kind of had a little bit of a recap video. I'm going to be doing that every time I watch some Olympic volleyball. It's going to be a little tough tomorrow because I have work, but it is what it is. But in the Argentina-USA match, the U.S., like I said, they looked strong. Aaron Russell, who made his return after missing the entire 2020 Olympics, he had 13 kills. He hit 600. He had 3 service aces, and he had a big 4-0 scoring run in set 2, which actually helped the U.S. from being down 10-8 to being up 12-10, as eventually the U.S. just never looked back. And it was his first Olympic match since 2016. But it wasn't just Aaron Russell who had himself a nice little game. Taylor Averill had himself a nice game in his Olympic debut. The former Hawaii star was 6 for 6 in kills. He hit 1,000 for those that are keeping track. And then he also had 2 blocks. And he actually had a key serving run in set 1. So set 1 was actually pretty tight between Argentina and the U.S. It looked like it can go either way. Argentina was leading early on. The U.S. was leading early on. It was just a nice little tug of war. Then Taylor Averill goes on this nice little serving run. It was a 4-0 run, which broke a 12-12 tie. And eventually the U.S. just never looked back in that first set as they wound up winning that first set 25-20. And Averill's serving run was one of the reasons why they wound up winning. And like I said, the second set was pretty much the same, except Aaron Russell had a 4-0 personal scoring run. He had a kill, and then he dealt 3 service aces in a row, which I thought was pretty darn impressive, if you ask me. And then the third set, the U.S. just really belted Argentina. Argentina just could not get anything going. I will say they kind of limited Bruno Loser of Argentina. He wasn't as explosive and dominant as he normally is in certain matches. As the entire U.S. team offensively, they were just all over the place. They hit 500 to Argentina's 285. Micah Christensen did an excellent job of leading the offense. I was very impressed with the setter. I think he's definitely one of the focal points for the U.S. TJ DeFalco also had himself a nice little game. He had 9 kills. He had 4 service aces. He hit 667. Speaking of service aces, the U.S. out-aced Argentina 8-0. They held Argentina to 0 service aces. So all in all, for the U.S., I was just downright impressed. And what really stood out was that they really passed good. For those that actually take or pay attention to the passing stats, Aaron Russell had 12 serve receptions. Matt Anderson and Eric Shoji had 8 serve receptions. The entire passing and serve receive was just really, really good. It was just really amazing. And again, whether it mattered or not, this was kind of a revenge game. Now, some told me that the U.S. didn't care about revenge, and it would have been awesome if I were in person when it came to this event. I would like to ask John Sproul or any of the players that if the 2020 Olympics, where Argentina eliminated the U.S., mattered in terms of like its motivation. But the U.S., all it is focusing on is scoring points, getting the next point, and just playing its brand of volleyball. And if you listen to the broadcast on USA Network, Paul Sunderland did make note that most of these players are basically calling it quits after the Olympics. So this is basically the last dance for a majority of these teams, because most of these players are pretty up there in age. Now, I'm a little surprised that TJ DeFalco's calling it quits. Maybe he wants to I've heard he wants to transition to beach volleyball, but he's only 27, and that's pretty young if you ask me. So I'm a little baffled by why he wants to call it quits, but if he just wants to move past volleyball, then that's totally fine. But this is basically the last dance for a majority of these players. After that, they're basically going to call it quits. And what better way than to basically try to go out on top? And I think that the U.S. is doing a great job. John Sproul had his team really prepared. You can't compliment John Sproul enough. I'm not complimenting him just because he's a former Set Point guest. I'm complimenting him because he had his team so prepared. Like, the way they passed was so amazing. I was just downright impressed that they really were just on their A game. Because Argentina is a team that if you let them hang around, they're going to find a way to score points and eventually get you when it truly matters. And the U.S. and Argentina have had battles, not just in the Olympics, but in the VNL as well. You remember, if I remember correctly, it was 2023 or last year when they were in the VNL in pool play. Argentina wound up winning a banger of a 4th set. I think it was like 43-41. And eventually Argentina wound up winning the 5th set over the U.S. And John Sproul obviously was not pleased. Not pleased at losing, but he was just not pleased with how his team lost a very tight set. And he knew his team was extremely gassed. But he also gave props to Argentina. So he knew he really wanted his team prepared and whatnot. So I think for the U.S., they really want to make a great first impression. Now, they obviously can't get relaxed. They obviously just can't be satisfied with this win. They have to basically show up. They have to show up to the next match, because winning one pool play match is great and all, but you have other talented opponents. Like, for instance, their next matchup is against Germany, and that's going to be a complete banger of a matchup. Now, you're probably wondering, why is this matchup so big? Well, let me tell you. Germany wound up taking down Japan in 5 sets that same day. I don't think anybody had that on their bingo card, and I think that was a very impressive win. So I think for the U.S., they've really got their work cut out. So and the thing about the Germany matches is that that's basically first place in Pool C, and if whoever wins will pretty much guarantee themselves most likely into the knockout round. If one team isn't going to be finishing first in Pool C, then they're probably going to be the lucky loser who has just enough points, which will be the 7 and 8 seed of the knockout round. So I will say this for the U.S. The U.S. match against Germany is huge because it's for first place. They know what to expect from Germany, but Germany now knows what to expect from the U.S. And we're going to see if Germany can ride the coattails of that big win over Japan. Whereas, can the U.S. have another strong match against Germany after building off a big win over Argentina? So this is basically a 2 versus 4 match. I don't think seeds really matter at this point, because Germany just really proved themselves that they belong in the Olympics. Because beating Japan, that's such a big win, because Japan, if I recall correctly, they finished second in the VNL, and they're one of the top teams in the world. So I think that's nothing to sneeze at. And Germany was one of the few double-digit seeded teams in this whole tournament. So the fact that they were able to pull out a win of that magnitude, the U.S. just can't underestimate them. Now, that being said, if the U.S. plays their brand of volleyball, if they pass the ball well, if they serve really tough, if Aaron Russell has another big game, if TJ DeFalco has a big game, if we see Matt Anderson step up, it's over. And the U.S. also ran the middle really well, running it with Taylor Averill, as well as Max Holt. That was pretty good as well. The blocking was also good. I think it was like 12-3 in terms of blocks. And the U.S. only had, I think it was like 1 hitting error in set 3. That was just how dominant the U.S. was in their match in terms of men's volleyball. And Marcus loves great pops in the chat room. He says, salute. Thank you, Marcus. And Davidson is waiting for that beach volleyball analysis. I'll get there, don't worry. And then Davidson is also, or Adam as well. And Marcus is kind of puzzling me with this. He says the U.S. is trash. Well, are we talking about beach volleyball or men's volleyball or women's volleyball, Marcus? Because I can't necessarily I can't really gauge what you're really saying about that. But I digress. All right, but that is that for the men's volleyball side of things. And just to go over the roundup, Germany, like I said, they beat Japan in 5. That was such a huge win. You also had Italy taking down Brazil in 4. Poland swept Egypt. That was kind of a no-brainer, just because, no offense to Egypt, but they're kind of the odd man out. And then Slovenia handled Canada in 4. Kind of a good matchup right there. I thought that was a very underrated matchup. But overall, that's it for the men's volleyball Olympic roundup. And now for the beach volleyball roundup. So I know Adam and Davidson were waiting for this. Kristen Nuss and Teran Rodriguez are here to stay. They are 2-0 in pool play. They wound up winning today, and they wound up winning their Olympic opener against a pair from Canada on Saturday. I was just downright impressed with Nuss and Cloth. And yes, I watched both matches, the indoor men's volleyball match and the beach volleyball match with Teran Cloth and Kristen Nuss. They looked Olympic ready. For a pair that has not been in the Olympics up until now, they looked really ready. I think this pair definitely has at least any sort of medal written all over them. I gave the U.S. on the women's side I think it was, I don't remember the exact percentage, but I think it was like a 90-ish percent, a 90+% in terms of medaling in women's beach volleyball. And Sarah Hughes and Kelly Chang, they also were straight up phenomenal in their first pool play match. I was not surprised because Kelly Chang has the experience, and that team chemistry with Sarah Hughes back when they were at USC really just helped them out. And then Chase Buninger and Miles Evans. Yes, and Adam says that's not to say that the analysis isn't terrific, however. Yeah. But for Chase Buninger and Miles Evans, they were 1-0. They actually played their first Olympic match together for the first time, and they wound up winning, which I thought was pretty good right there. You have to remember, Chase Buninger was a former NBA player, and he wound up winning. He and his partner, Miles Evans, they wound up winning in their debut. Now, the only one to not win in beach volleyball when it comes to the U.S. was Andy Benish and Miles Partain. They wound up losing a tough one to Cuba in 2 sets. Now, unfortunately, the first set was what really hurt them. First set, they were up 16-11, and then they allowed a 10-2 run to eventually lose the first set 21-18. Man, if there's ever a set that you want to take back, whether you're a beach volleyball player or an indoor volleyball player, I'm just going to say it right now. That's probably one of those sets that you want to get back. You're up 5 and you got to put your foot on the gas. I just don't understand. And the second set, it was basically more, it was okay. It wasn't more of the same. It was just that Andy Benish and Miles Partain, they were doing solid, but unfortunately early on, and then once that early on, however, it just went down the toilet. And sadly, I will just say, I feel inexperience kind of did them in. Now, that Cuba pair that they faced, they're young, but they're very big. They're big at the net. And I feel that Benish and Partain kind of got the first match jitters. Now, does that mean they're gonna stink the rest of the way? I don't think so. I think that was just an unlucky match. I mean, they were the first U.S. pair, let alone U.S. anything volleyball related, to kick off anything when it comes to the Olympics. So I can understand them having the pregame jitters, and then obviously being in Paris, France, they got the pregame jitters. But that first set is just unacceptable. You can't score 2 points in the span of 12 plays. That's just not right. So all in all, when it comes to Andy Benish and Miles Partain, that was tough. But I still think they have a chance to make it out of pool play. I imagine it's going to be tough. It's top 16 advances to the knockout round, and there are a bunch of pools which it's going to depend on where you finish. Top 2 is most ideal if you're a beach volleyball pair. So there you have it right there. I just feel that this loss doesn't do them any favors, because when you lose, it basically puts you on your heels. But I think that it's basically a learning experience. You got to learn as you're basically like a bunch of miles away from home. So here's hoping that Miles Partain and Andy Benish get at least one Olympic win. And then here's hoping for the rest of the U.S. pairs that they're able to basically get her done. And then going back to Teran Rodriguez and Kristen Nuss, being 2-0 is so ideal because they have quite a bit of time off before their next match. And I think being 2-0 is so much better than being, well, obviously it's better than being 1-0 and 0-2. But I will say that Teran Rodriguez and Kristen Nuss, for being rookies, they don't look like rookies. Like, they had to climb their way up from the bottom of like the AVP and then to being where they are now. So I think for Teran Rodriguez and Kristen Nuss, I love their story. I love how Teran Rodriguez was from like the Midwest and wasn't big on volleyball. She eventually started out at Creighton in indoor, finished up her volleyball career at LSU. And Kristen Nuss was the all-time winningest player in, I think, NCAA history, as well as LSU beach volleyball history. So I think that's just outright incredible for Teran Rodriguez and Kristen Nuss right there. But that's basically going to do it for the U.S. Beach Volleyball Roundup. I'm kind of going to limit it to only that. I'm sorry, everybody. I promise you I'll have more in-depth analysis when it comes to beach volleyball next week. But if I went through the entirety of that beach volleyball, then I'd probably be here for, it would probably be like 40 minutes from now, as opposed to like being here 20 minutes as of right now. But we're going to take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, I've got some women's volleyball to discuss, as how the U.S. lost to China is beyond me. And then in the midst of everything, we have an AVP tournament this weekend. Keep it locked here. You are listening to Set Point here on OATIIZ Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on OATIIZ Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Are you a fan of Buffalo sports? Are you thinking of changing loyalties and becoming a Buffalo sports fan? Do you even know where Buffalo is on the map? Did you know Canada is closer to Buffalo than New York City? Welcome to the Buffalo Huddle, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time on OATIIZ Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Patty Bax. This is a podcast designed for you, the passionate sports fan. I know you love your sports. Who doesn't? I cover Buffalo sports and so much more by bringing in the human elements. I call it Buffalo Sports with a Twist. Join me as we take a journey into the world of Buffalo sports. I guarantee you'll fall in love with Buffalo just like I did. Each week we start with an inspiration, question of the day, a Buffalo fun fact, and a weekly challenge to you, the listener. Come huddle up with me every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time for the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax on OATIIZ Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. As we say in Buffalo, go Bills!
And we are back with the second segment of Set Point here on OATIIZ Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Big shout out to Jen B, who tuned in and has popped into the chat room. She said, I watched one of the women's beach volleyball matches. It was a nice sweep of Canada. Thank you for that comment. And that was probably the match where Kristen Nuss and Teran Rodriguez made their Olympic debut. So I'll get to that a little bit later, but definitely check out all of our amazing shows, such as the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax and Let's Whine About DMV Sports. So, yeah, Jen B, I think Jen B is referencing the Kristen Nuss versus Teran Rodriguez matchup against Canada, which one of the pairs on Canada was actually a former USC. I think that one said player wound up winning 3 national championships with USC, which I think it was pretty good. And yes, she confirms it. Yes, it was. So, yeah, so there you have it. That was a nice way to open the tournament or the Olympics. So I actually forgot to mention one more thing when it comes to the sweep over Argentina. So the win over Argentina was big, but it's just because Argentina had 0 players with 10 or more points. Their leading player was Bruno Loser, who had 8 points. But like I said, they did not let anybody pop off or get real hot. So the U.S. did not let Argentina cook, and that was big right there. All right, but that's enough for the men's side of things and beach side of things. So let's jump on into the women's volleyball side of things on the indoor. And unfortunately, the U.S. had themselves a tough matchup as they wound up losing a heartbreaker to China in 5 sets. This one really grinded my gears. And I'm pretty certain every USA volleyball fan that wound up winning, wound up watching this match, whether you're on the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest, or even on Hawaii time. God bless you if you watched it at 5 a.m. Hawaii time. I'm just going to say you have to not be pleased with this matchup. And I'm just very miffed when it comes to this. So the first set, it was pretty disastrous. It looked like the U.S. was off to a solid start, but then China really was just digging everything. They were serving tough. They were passing well. They just did everything perfectly that the U.S. didn't. Annie Drews was struggling early on. Jordan Larson did get the start, to the happiness of Nebraska fans and Jordan Larson fans and USA Volleyball fans. But unfortunately, she looked a little rusty. Remember, she did not play in any of the friendly matches against Netherlands, as China wound up taking the first set 25-20. Second set was looking pretty good as Annie Drews was off to a hot start. She led the team in points after that first set with 5, and she was just ripping it. If you've seen Annie Drews play, she has a freaking cannon for an arm, and she probably is one of the more emerging and blossoming stars when it comes to this U.S. team. But I also hear that she might be considering it's going to be calling it quits. She might be calling it quits afterward. I can't confirm that officially, but I digress. You got to look on her Instagram page. But the second set, it looked like the U.S. was off to a solid start. Another good start, as like I said, Annie Drews was looking good. But China just eventually caught their second win. When they were blocking the ball well. If they weren't digging the ball, they were blocking the ball. As eventually China wound up taking the second set 25-19. They were just outpassing the U.S. in everything. And I'm just going to say the double sub just did not work for the U.S. I'm not going to say that sitting Carlini or benching Lauren Carlini is the answer, but the double sub just does not work for the U.S. It just didn't work just because in the first set, the double sub, the U.S. was down 1, and then eventually they were down like 5 or 6. So when the double sub occurred. So I'm not saying bench Lauren Carlini or just run a 5-1, but I will say maybe not have a double sub. If, as the old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So in that set, so after the second set, Karch Karai does the impressive and smart thing to do, as he actually subbed out Jordan Larson and Kelsey Robinson Cook because both were struggling. Both players had 7 points combined, as Jordan Larson had 4 points on 4 kills, and then Kelsey Robinson had 3 points through 3 kills. So instead of having those two, Karch Karai put in Avery Skinner and Catherine Plummer, which I thought was the smartest decision ever. Avery Skinner alone in set 3 had 8 points. Through that third set, she had more points than Jordan Larson and Kelsey Robinson combined. At least Karch Karai made that decision and he didn't make that mistake of taking her out. Eventually, the U.S. wound up winning set 3, 25-17. But I'm just going to say, it shouldn't take Karch Karai 2 sets to realize, oh, wait, maybe I should put Avery Skinner and Catherine Plummer, 2 players that stood out in the friendly matches. When I'm playing a Jordan Larson who has not seen action against another team. Because he even said it best when I asked him after my interview. He said, Jordan Larson isn't 100%, but she's getting there. If she's not 100%, why are you starting her? I'm sorry, Karch. I'm not going to try to bash Karch correct because I don't want to get canceled and I don't want IE Sports Radio to get in trouble. And remember, these are my thoughts and opinions and not the thoughts and opinions of IE Sports Radio. But I will say that's a mistake on Karch Karai for realizing, oh, wait, I have two other talented players that are young and experienced and are talented that should be in the match instead of my struggling veterans who are laying a goose egg in the Olympics. If this were the friendlies, I could understand him leaving them in there, but this isn't the friendlies. This isn't the VNL. This is the freaking Olympics. You got to actually play the players that actually can get the job done. You have to have the best 6 players on the court. It's not rocket science, Karch. Anyway, so the fourth set, that was kind of a dogfight as well. It looked like China eventually tied it up at 18-18, but the U.S. used a 7-2 run to eventually take that fourth set 25-20, forcing a fifth set, which I thought was I was a little concerned that it was probably going to go that China was going to eventually end the match in 4, but I still had no doubt. I knew the U.S. was going to find a way to push it to 5, and the reason and them pushing it to 5 was so big because the reason being is that if the U.S. does not push it to 5 and they lose in like 4 or 3, the U.S. gets 0 points. If you push it to 5, you get at least 1 point. It's like in soccer where not soccer. It's like in hockey. In hockey terms, which my buddy Adam Carnick can probably relate. If a game goes into overtime, then you get at least 1 point, and then the winner of the game gets an extra point. Whereas if you win in regulation, you get 3 points, and then the losing team gets nothing. So that's kind of a little bit of some volleyball lingo right there in terms of like pool play and whatnot. But jumping to set 5, the U.S. was actually up 6-4, but China eventually tied it up at 7-7. The U.S. went up 8-7. But unfortunately for the U.S., China went on a 4-0 run to lead 11-8. Eventually, China led 14-10, and it was looking bad. Now, one of the plays, I think it was like 13-10. I was very confused. I was hoping that it was going to be the U.S.'s point, but apparently there was a net violation on the U.S. I thought it was going to be a back row attacker violation or a back row blocker violation on China, but unfortunately the U.S. netted. That would have been so big because being down 14-10 is so much worse than being down 13-11. I know that's basic math, but if you're only down 2 points and you're not having to stare down a match point from the opposing team, you're in a better position. Whereas if if the opposing team has 4 match points, you basically have to play as perfect as possible. Eventually, the U.S. did score 3 straight points to make it 14-13. Well, unfortunately, China was able to score off a kill off the block. I thought the U.S. was going to get it, but unfortunately, it was not meant to be. Eventually, skipped off the block and off to the right. And eventually, China wound up winning the 5th set, 15-13, to win the extra point as they got 2 points out of that, whereas the U.S. wound up winning just 1. So as you saw in my brief recap video, it was a banger of a match. It was a barn burner. You can't ask for anything more between the 2 teams that have gold medaled in the past 2 Olympics. The U.S. gold medaled last year, while China gold medaled in 2016. But unfortunately for the U.S., they lost to China for the first time in the Olympics since 2004, I want to say. And that's pretty disappointing if you ask me. So I have my thoughts on the match, obviously. Well, I will say the U.S. obviously losing is not ideal, especially when you're in a pool with Serbia, which has been a team that has given you fits in the past. But the fact that they salvaged 1 point is so crucial because that could be their golden nugget to eventually being the lucky loser or the lucky third place team that makes it into the top 8, because there are 3 pools and only the top 2 advance automatically. But a third place team could get in depending on the number of points. Whoever has the most points of all the 3rd and 4th place teams, they will be getting into the knockout round. And I basically predicted that Pool A could see 3 teams at 2-1 and basically it'd be a 3-way tie, or it'd go down to points. So, and I could see all 3 of those teams in the mix, so it basically would be Serbia, China, and the U.S. After this loss, I'm hoping the U.S. can basically bounce back against Serbia. But to go over my thoughts from this match, banger of a match. Annie Drews played out of her mind. She had 26 kills and 3 blocks. She was her, and I basically told everyone on X that she is the right side queen. It's nothing against Jordan Thompson. She was also phenomenal, but you got to go with Annie Drews. She has the height advantage. She has a cannon of an arm. She has the hot hand. You just cannot go back to anyone else. And again, no disrespect to Jordan Thompson, but Annie Drews was just her. And Purdue Boilermaker Nation needs to stand the frick up. Avery Skinner had 15 kills off the bench. She had 17 points overall. 5 different players with 10 or more points for the U.S. Catherine Plummer had 10 points, which I thought was pretty good. That was off the bench, by the way. You also had Haley Washington and Chiaka Ogbagu cracking double digits in the point category. Unfortunately, it was not enough, as the U.S., like I said, they fell. Now, as for China's standout, Li Yingying was the standout. She had 26 points, and she had 9 points in the 5th set alone. Keep in mind that China scored 15 points, which was the target score. She basically had 60% of China's points in set 5. That's incredible right there. And basically dominant and talented players like that do everything possible to help their team get the win. And I will just say the passing was just not ideal through the first 2 sets. And then set 3, Justine Wong Orantes was just digging everything. I was just downright impressed. So overall for this loss, it was tough for the U.S. I think Karchkrai could have made a whole lot better decisions. Again, I'm not going to try to rip him because he's coached volleyball longer than me, but I will also just say he could have coached a way better match than this. He really has to realize what's working and what's not. And if you have to go into your bench and get the young, talented players to go in, you got to get them in ASAP because, again, this is the freaking Olympics. You can't just wait till you're down 0-2 to try to reverse sweep. A match should never, ever, 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 ever be won via reverse sweep, unless you are just playing your worst and you're basically in a match where it doesn't necessarily matter, like you're playing in the VNL pool play or you're playing a friendly match. But if you're playing in the Olympics, it shouldn't come down, or the national championship or anything of that sort. If you're playing in a big match where you need all the wins you can get, you can't afford to have to play from behind in order to win. You just cannot afford to reverse sweep your way to victory. It's just not ideal. I know Turkey did that earlier today, or Turkey did that earlier against Netherlands, but that's for a little bit later. But it was just so disappointing that I feel bad for Avery Skinner because she did so much. She brought so much energy off the bench. It's just very disappointing that her efforts were just, unfortunately, I wouldn't say in vain, because she should have opened the eyes of Karch-Kiraly. But my thing is, what do you do with the Avery Skinner and Catherine Plummer going forward? Do you bring them in off the bench in every set? Do you start Catherine Plummer or Avery Skinner and then keep Kelsey Cook or Jordan Larson in the starting rotation? Because let's be honest, Kelsey Robinson Cook and Jordan Larson were just not great. Jordan Larson, obviously, I don't think is at 100%, in my opinion. I'm not trying to anger a Husker Nation, but I will just say she just didn't look like the dominant Jordan Larson self that we all saw. And again, this was her first match since the VNL, where before that, after the VNL, she had a hamstring injury, which forced her to miss the entirety of the friendlies against Netherlands. So again, other than practice, she was very rusty. But all in all, and also Jordan Poulter, she ran the offense effectively. Unfortunately, her mobility isn't really the greatest. Obviously, she had a knee injury, which saw her break every part of that knee, whether it's the ACL, the MCL, the meniscus. Every time Paul Sunderland brought it up on the broadcast, my knees were hurting. But all in all, for Jordan Poulter, she ran the offense well. Unfortunately, it just wasn't ultimately effective, but it is what it is. I mean, they can't really go to Micah Hancock because she's an alternate, and I don't know what they will do with Lauren Carlini, but I guess Jordan Poulter at this point, she's probably the best option at setter. And then Justine Wong-Orantes obviously stepped up her gameplay at the libero position as the match went on. I think the U.S. just needed some momentum going forward, and I think that Avery Skinner and Catherine Plummer bringing that momentum off the bench is what really helped them. So I think for the U.S., they could still make it out of pool play, but now their margin of error is super thin. It's like this thin. As their next matchup is against Serbia. That's going to be on Wednesday. I think it's also at 8 a.m. Regardless, it's another early matchup. Well, okay, not early if you're on Hawaii time. It's not necessarily early for like West Coasters and Midwesters and East Coasters. But this is a crucial match for the U.S. Serbia wound up I would say womping, but they wound up handling France in straight sets, which was no surprise. Serbia has given the U.S. fits in past matches, but that's in the past. The U.S. has to find the perfect players to put onto the court to help execute, pass really well, and just get the job done against Serbia. Because if they have another clunker match like this, then their chances of making the knockout round could be in jeopardy. And again, it's not saying that if they lose, they will be out for good. They'll still have one more pool play match against France, but I will say losing to Serbia would really put them behind the 8 ball. A win over Serbia, whether it's in 5 or just 4-3, would be so ideal, because then that would basically give them a whole lot of breathing room into making the top 2 in terms of pool play. And that 1 point might have actually saved the U.S.'s chances of making the knockout round, because if they don't get that 1 point, then they have 0 points going into Wednesday as opposed to 1 point. So I think for the U.S., they really need to cross their T's and dot their I's. They really have to show up ready to go against Serbia, and they have to put the best players on the court. If I'm Karch Karai, I'd really experiment with either Catherine Plummer or Avery Skinner. Eventually, these opposing teams are going to get Avery Skinner and Catherine Plummer on tape, and they're going to exploit the heck out of their weaknesses. Because once you get tape, then it's advantage the other team, and they'll make the correct protocols to make sure they get those players out of their comfort zone. But Karch Karai has a major decision on his hands. Also, I will just ask, why did we not see Dana Retke in this match? She is 6'8", and she would have definitely been able to get the job done with her height and whatnot. Yes, I know Haley Washington and Chiaka Agbagu are the veterans of this team. However, I will also just say this: Dana Retke and her height and her wingspan just provides so many matchup problems for opposing teams. And China has some pretty tall players, so I'm not going to say that the decision-making from Karch Karai was bad, but I will just say it needs to be better, because the U.S. is the reigning gold medalist, and I'm starting to see why he said that the U.S. is not the favorites to win the gold medal and that it's Italy. But you still have to have some confidence within yourself. But regardless, the U.S. really needs to get the job done on Wednesday against Serbia. It's going to be on USA Network, 8 a.m. Pacific start time, which would mean 11 a.m. East Coast time, and then 10 a.m. Midwest time or Central time, and then 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, and then 5 a.m. Hawaii time. All right, so for the other teams that played today or that played in pool play, you had Italy handling the Dominican Republic in 4, Poland passing a nice little test against Japan in 4 sets. Turkey, like I said, they reverse swept Netherlands. That was such a big win. Brazil rolled past Kenya in 3, which was not surprising. And then Serbia swept France. Now, the reverse sweep between Turkey and Netherlands, I knew Netherlands was going to be a little bit of a matchup problem, because I saw Netherlands against the U.S., and they were certainly no pushover. They were facing a talented Turkey team, and it seemed like Turkey in sets 3, 4, and 5, they were always playing from behind. So this Netherlands team can be very dangerous. If you play the Netherlands and you underestimate them and you think you're getting an easy matchup, you're done messing up. Because the Netherlands is the real deal with Celeste Plok leading the way on the right side. And then you've got other Merit Jasper, who's also pretty good on the outside. So all in all for the Netherlands, it was a tough reverse sweep as Turkey was able to play 11 out of the 12 players on their roster. Yes, 11 out of 12 players saw the court in this match against Netherlands. When you're doing that, then you basically have 11 players that are raring to go, if not 12 players, and you just couldn't find room to play the 12th player. If that's the case, then that's probably the backup libero, which I don't know. But mad props to Turkey on the win, or Turkey as most people refer to them as. They were down quite a bit in that fifth set. I think they were down 6-3, and eventually they tied it up, and they wound up winning the fifth set 15-13. Felix Kozlowski obviously was not pleased, but honestly, the Netherlands, they're in a tough pool. They're in a pool with freaking Italy. That's their next matchup. If they can at least win one pool play match, I think they'll be fine. But honestly, their best chance at winning a matchup would be against Dominican Republic. If they can get 1 point off of Italy and then beat Dominican Republic in 3 or 4, I think they'll be okay. But Dominican Republic taking Italy to 4, and Italy is the number 1 team in the world, I don't know. That's probably the pool of death right there, because Dominican Republic is no pushover. Netherlands are no pushovers. Turkey is no pushover. And then Italy, number 1 in the nation, is basically the big boss. But all in all, that's basically how everything is going in women's volleyball pool play. I'm really looking forward to day 2 of pool play. I think we're in for some banger matchups right there. And if you're someone that wakes up early for these matches, I got to give you bad props just because I am not the best morning person. I struggle to get up for work, but I digress. All right, but that is that for the U.S. women's volleyball side of things in the Olympics. We'll take one more commercial break. When we come back, we've got Navy P tournament to preview because it's the Virginia Beach Open, meaning we're heading down to the DMV. Keep it locked here. You were listening to Set Point here on OATIIZ Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, ladies and centers. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, OATIIZ Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by OATIIZ Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas ACEs, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter at any time. Be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by OATIIZ Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, Pittsburgh? This is Ralph Galise, the host of the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Are you that passionate diehard Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, or just a Pittsburgh sports fan? Then please join me on the Injury Report every Tuesday on IE Sports Radio, the direct feed for all that is sports. And I will update you on all that's black and gold and have you telling your Pittsburgh fans and friends what's up with Pittsburgh sports. Tune in Tuesday with me, Ralph Galise, the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's go!
And we are back with the final segment of this episode of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, such as the Yinzer Report and Sin City Sports. With all that said and done, let's get on into the final episode, for the final segment of the show. And throughout all of the Olympic Volleyball that's been happening in Paris, there's an AVP tournament this weekend, as the AVP will be taken, after pretty much a month off, the AVP will be taking its talents to the DMV for the Virginia Beach Open. So the AVP tournament is heading to the Virginia Beach, and I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited to see what's in store for what's to come for the AVP tournament in Virginia Beach. So the top four seeds on the men's side are as follows: 1 through 4. Cody Caldwell and Sean Cook is the top overall seed. They won't have to see Taylor and Taylor, which I think they're pretty much breathing a sigh of relief. And then you've got the 2 seed, Kame Schulk and James Shaw. 3 seed is Triborn and Ryan Wilcox. And the 4th seed is Salia Tucker and DJ Klasnick. Now, you're probably wondering, well, why is Triborn and Ryan Wilcox paired up? And why is Kame Schulk and James Shaw paired up? Well, this is something I haven't really dived into, but Kame Schulk and Triborn, they're no longer partners. This was about a few weeks ago. This was pretty much back at the Denver Open, or after the Huntington Beach Open, where Kame Schulk and Triborn pretty much ended the partnership. So Triborn is with Ryan Wilcox, who is a freaking stud, who helped lead he and his partner as the lowest ever seed in the AVP's Huntington Beach Open to a win in the main draw. Well, he first led them to the main draw, then they wound up winning a main draw match as the highest seed in AVP history. And then James Shaw was previously partnered with Jordan Hoppe. They had themselves a solid Huntington Beach Open as well. And now James Shaw is partnered up with Kame Schulk, which I think is pretty cool right there. It's going to feel weird not seeing Triborn and Kame Schulk partnered up together. It's going to take a little bit of time just because those two were basically like peanut butter and jelly. But I guess they just wanted to go their separate ways when it came to it. But I just wanted to bring that AVP news right there just because that's big right there. Kame Schulk and Triborn are obviously legends when it comes to the AVP and beach volleyball altogether. But seeing this whole partner breakup is a little saddening, but it is what it is. That's just how it is sometimes the AVP. Sometimes you'll see pairs like shuffle around their partners every so often midway through a season. So there you have it right there. So I'm looking forward to the men's side of things. As for the women's side of things, the top 4 seeds of this tournament are as follows: Megan J. Rice and Brooke Bauer, Gina Yarongo and Tony Rodriguez, Abby Van Winkle and Savvy Simo, and Tegan Van Gunst and Kim Hildreth. So those are your top 4 seeds. Keep an eye out for Devin Newberry and her partner Jaden Whitmarsh. That's basically going to be Devin Newberry, I'm not certain if Jaden Whitmarsh is her partner. If it is, then obviously that's obvious that they're partnered up. But if not, then just keep an eye out for Devin Newberry. She is really taking the AVP by storm, and she is just 1 year removed out of college from UCLA. So I think Devin Newberry is probably going to be. Devin Newberry kind of reminds me of I forget the former UCLA's player's name, but she's the girlfriend of Micah Ma. I'm blanking on her name. Zonamuno, that's her name. Devin Newberry kind of reminds me of Zonamuno. They kind of share the same looks as well, but in my opinion, but that's irrelevant. But Devin Newberry's game kind of reminds me of Zonamuno's. Like, they're both scrappy, and they both can get big digs and eventually lead to big kills. So that's kind of my little 2 cents right there. But back to the top 4 seeds, Megan J. Rice and Brooke Bauer, I expect them to have a big tournament. I think this would be their big chance to make a statement in the AVP. They had themselves a nice little tournament in Vancouver. I think it was called the Vancouver Open. It wasn't AVP related, but they wound up winning that Vancouver Open, and it was big right there for the both of them just because the two have been long yearning for a tournament win. I know they've had success in past tournaments, whether it's like AVP or whether it's in other tournaments outside of the AVP, whether it's Ordner Second or whatnot. But I think Megan J. Rice and Brooke Bauer are due for an AVP tournament win. You also can't sleep on Gina Yarongo and Tony Rodriguez. Gina Yarongo is kind of one of the OGs of the AVP. And Tony Rodriguez is still a young up-and-comer, former LSU player who is straight up phenomenal. She's looking rather hungry for an AVP tournament as well, another AVP tournament win. And then Avi Van Winkle and Savvy Simo both obviously having won the Waupaca Open. They obviously are looking for better results after losing in the semifinals of the Denver Open, which obviously was a bummer for them. But that pair right there, they're really starting to basically gel with one another. And then Tegan Van Gunst and Kim Hildreth, they're kind of also in the same boat as Megan J. Rice and Brooke Bauer. They want to prove themselves. They want to prove that their team chemistry is just as good as any other pair in the AVP. I really think that they can definitely make noise. It's just all about them getting out of obviously make it through to the semifinal Saturday and championship Sunday. Blech. But one thing I will wonder is, why are we having an AVP tournament when it comes to the Olympics? It's gonna, other than the locals at Virginia Beach, it's gonna be so tough for viewers to focus on the AVP and the Olympics. Maybe there won't be any Olympic volleyball the days of the AVP, but it's going to be so tough for viewership and whatnot. But I don't know. Maybe the AVP knows something we don't. This is the third to last tournament when it comes to the regular season of the AVP, and to get an automatic qualifier for the AVP league, because after this there's only the Manhattan Beach Open, which is one of the godfathers of the AVP tournaments, and then you've got the Chicago Open, which is the last tournament before the AVP league. So this is basically pretty much one of the few last dances we could be seeing some of these pairs get a possible spot in the AVP league, just because everyone is looking to lock in a spot. Because if you win an AVP tournament before the AVP league, you basically are automatically in the AVP league. And another thing I got to ask is this. Who's going to be emceeing this whole thing with Mark Schuerman emceeing the Olympics in Paris? Is Rob Aspero going to be flying out to Virginia Beach to see the action? That's what I'm wondering. It's food for thought right there, because I just realized Mark Schuerman is already in Paris, France. Who's going to be taking over for him when it comes to the AVP tournament? So we'll see what happens, but that's a little bit of a food for thought and tidbit right there. So that's basically that for the AVP portion of the show. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you everyone for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I very much appreciate you. Shout out to the chat room: Marcus, Lois, Grace, Jen B, Adam Carney, Davidson Crooks, and Ralph Cruz, as well as Bishop. I really do appreciate y'all tuning in, and anyone else that tuned in on the playback. You all are awesome. I will be live for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show this Friday. I'm hoping I don't run into any trouble. We'll see what happens. I guarantee you I will be back after missing last week. But until then, for everyone here at ICE Clear, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourself a great rest of the week. Enjoy the Olympic Volleyball action. Enjoy the AVP if you're able to watch. I'll see you all on Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. And definitely keep an eye out for my content when it comes to these post-matches. Have a great week, and I will see you on the other side, if not on Friday, for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Peace!